Welcome to Takeaways, Life Lessons Learned. My guest today is Guy Martin with Martin Harris Construction. His father, Frank Martin, started the company 48 years ago.
1976.
Wow, 1976. Frank was one of the OG guests on the Takeaways podcast. We were just talking about it was episode 19, and that was back in 2018. So many years have passed now. All right, so you joined the family business in 1982.
Yep, 12 years old.
Seriously?
Yes, sir. Summer I turned 13. Toys R Us store on the corner of Meadows Lane and Decatur. It was my first job site.
Meadows, okay, yeah.
Right next to the Meadows Mall.
So you got to build Toys R Us.
We did. We built 3 Toys R Us stores, and I got to work on one of them.
Wow. All right. So you started as a laborer, you worked your way up to superintendent and then to estimator.
Yeah. So I've, I tell people all the time in my testimony and my bio is, I have worked in every single department in the company in my 42 years that I've been with the company, except accounting. And there's a great reason for that. I mean, I'm a carpenter by trade, never went to college. You shouldn't give a carpenter a lot of money. So, but I worked in every other department in the company.
What about IT?
Time. It's funny you mentioned that. I am our resident IT executive. I know way too much about Zoom rooms and, we're going through an office expansion right now. So we're future proofing and doing a lot of technology upgrades. And I seem to be the crash test dummy on every new initiative. So
I was saying that jokingly, but apparently,
no, I'm in it.
Apparently not.
Nope.
All right, so let's keep talking about, you mentioned you worked in every department. So
Yep.
You created a tenant improvement group and MH Building Specialties, which is a sister company to Martin Harris.
Yes. So M&H Building Specialties came along as a byproduct of my dad and his apprentice, Frank Harris, starting Martin Harris. My dad's Journeyman, a guy by the name of Bob Allenson, and his partner, Virgil Snyder, found themselves out of a job. They shut down the company that my dad and Frank Harris used to work for. And so my dad started a interior specialties company so that Bob and Virgil had a place to go to work. And so he really started that company for them. And in demountable partitions, acoustical ceiling, now my brother and I own the company today. And, we still crank out work here in town doing all the interior finish and fit out stuff. And, but yeah, that's where I went to begin my kind of ascension into leadership of our construction group.
Okay. And then from there, you came back to Martin Harris, director of business development, and then you were director of pre-construction services.
Yeah. So, that was, in the heyday of the condo world. And, my past, I'm a heavy timber roof structure kind of guy, cast in place concrete guy as carpenter and trade. And so a lot of the high rise work that we were looking at from Wyndham Hotels to what is now the Ogden, it used to be Streamline Tower, those projects that we built, I just had a natural propensity to figuring out big, difficult structures. So I found myself doing pre-construction work with them. I also started our Phoenix office, and went down and managed that at the same time I was pre-construction director at home office. So,
did you live there?
No. Now, one thing that was unique is, from the time I was probably, 12, 13 years old, I knew I wanted to run Martin Harris Construction. That was my thing. I wanted to take over from my dad. I had this nagging voice in the back of my head that wherever my dad was going to send me, I was going to do really, really well, because that's all I ever watched him do was really, really well. And I was scared to death that if I moved there, I'd never get to come back. So Phoenix was one of those. My wife, bless her heart, we've been married for 32, 33 years now, and she has put up with a lot. I have lived out of an overnight bag under my desk all through the recession and any place the company sent me, but I always came home to Las Vegas. And we bought a company back in the day in Texas, and I flew back and forth to Texas running that program. But I knew that if I ever moved, it would be successful, and my dad wouldn't have a reason to bring me back. So I just did it from a distance and just continued to plug through it. That's so
interesting. So labor, super, estimator, you were in operations, business development. Finally, you reported to the executive board and we're vice president of procurement.
Yes.
Educate me on what is procurement for a general contracting company?
So, procurement is nomenclature. So Martin Harris Construction, our core values and our culture foster a different nomenclature. We talk about things way differently than our peers in the market do. And so you do have to almost have like a conversion guide back and forth. When we went into the belly of the recession, we consolidated 4 departments into one. We cut our overhead by about $2.2 million in less than 6 days. We just consolidated and collapsed and pulled everything together. And it fundamentally for our company, procurement is marketing, business development, pre-construction, and estimating.
Okay.
And when we shut down those individual departments and collapsed them all into one group, I referred to it as the procurement group. Our job is to go out and procure work. Our job is to feed families, feed the animal, and keep the lights on. And we treat it every day like a battlefield. We still refer to it as our procurement department. I do have vice president of estimating. I have a vice president of pre-con. I have a vice president of business development. I have a senior director of marketing. The reality of it is they all still land under the same umbrella of winning work.
So it's marketing, estimating, pre-construction,
and business development,
and biz dev.
So the difference for us, marketing is everything that this community sees from us. Business development is everything our clients see from us. So we split everything very, very, very deliberately.
That's very good.
Very deliberate.
Marketing is community.
Yep.
It's like
marketing is where
it's like an advanced business class here, Guy. This is great.
It's just a carpenter.
And then business development is what our clients see.
Where our clients see us. Yep.
Wow.
And so when you see us and SIOR, NAOP, LVGEA functions, Vegas Chamber functions, whatever it is, ribbon cuttings, groundbreakings, whatever it is, we have a business plan for every one of those interactions. We know if it's a marketing function. We know if it's a business development function. We know if it's a operations function. We actually pre-flight those in conversations before we show up there. And so we know who we're there to make contact with.
So now you're the president of Martin Harris Construction.
Yes, sir.
How long have you been president, and what's your overall focus as president?
So I've been president of the company for 8 years. It was 8 years in May. Our business plan is very, very, very simple, and it is have fun, make money. The order is important. And my job is to build people. And I get to build some of the most amazing projects in Southern Nevada and show off the talent that and Northern Nevada now too. We have a Northern Nevada office as well. And I get to show off the talents of those people through what we build. We're wired a little different. We truly build what we build to show off the talents of the people we've collected. And we put their talents on display. That's how we look at it.
All right, so you're also, in my research of you, I've teased out a few other identities. You're a mentor, a leader in the small business community. You're an active participant in charitable and industry organizations. You've sat on numerous boards, which you could talk about, whichever ones are current and meaningful for you, but Nevada Workforce Connection, Associated General, AGC as we know it, so Associated General Contractors. You've really done a lot.
I am very, very, very blessed. And we might talk about it a little bit later, but my life goal has changed so dramatically over the last 10 years, and it's very simple for me. I want to live a life I can't explain. And, when somebody asks me what that means, it means that when you sit back and say, how did that happen? And I legitimately say, I don't know. It's because I don't know. It's not that I'm some benevolent level of humility or anything. I just don't know. But what I do know is that the more I push people and the more I develop relationships and the more I press into folks who on paper would never seemingly benefit me or our organization or even the associates at Martin Harris, the more doors fly open. And I think that's all. My faith requires me to do that. My faith says you get out of the way, right? You're given a gift, live in that gift. Life is easy if you're in that gift. That's really where I work every day. And I think that for me personally, I'm just now hitting my stride, and I'm 55 this year. I'll be 56 in January. And so the best is still to come.
A lot of different directions I could take that. I'm going to keep going with what's in front of me, and then we'll circle back to a few things. No, it's really, really good and compelling things there. So I mentioned I broke up your bios. I was reading it into categories. That was sort of the professional piece. Next is the industry leadership piece. So both the company and you, in your bio, you have a statement that Martin Harris has a corporate citizenship responsibility. Yeah, interesting. You don't see that in many bios, but yours has that, and that is to extend helping cultivate the next generation of construction industry professionals. And that's something that led you to become active with Nevada Workforce Connections.
Yeah. So, my industry is notorious for trying to never be the same as we were before. And we don't backfill ourselves. So, when a construction company grows from 150 million to 300 million, there's a gap. There's a hole that's created. And our companies don't ever go backwards well. Our industry doesn't react to contraction well at all. So the only way that you can really continue to move forward is to bring somebody up from behind, bring them up with you, have them fill that gap. And me, I would rather choreograph who fills in that gap than have it be a surprise to me one day when that guy's nipping at my heels and trying to take a client or take a job from me. And, my dad made the statement a long, long time ago that the company has no obligation to promote you. You have an obligation to build your replacement. And once your replacement is in place, then the company has an obligation to promote you. And so I treat that the same way with small business. I tell people all the time, it's a pretty unpopular statement that I make, but if your goal is to be the most successful small business in Southern Nevada, I'm probably not your mentor. If your goal is to only be a small business for a short period of time, I'm probably your guy. I just want to continue to build and to continue to develop the backfilling piece, and Workforce Connections gives you an opportunity to do that at a trade level. I graduated high school in 1987, walked out of there and went right to work as in the Carpenters Union, and journeyed out 2 years later and just kind of kept going. And we have another one of our things that we have kicking around our office is a program that we have right now that if craft and trade is too hard, there's always college. That's our twist on things. Okay. Good. I was raised in a world where, hey, okay, if you're going to go be a carpenter, that's fine, but you should always go to college first. Yeah. Well, I just don't think that's accurate anymore. And I think that the state and economics of student debt and cost of money, interest rate, there is no there's no golden rule that says you have to go to college. And I actually look at college as a fallback position. If being a carpenter is too hard, please go to college. If being a plumber is too hard, please go to college. But please consider craft and trade first. Workforce Connections let me carry that message directly there through Nevada Contractors Association, which is the AGC of Southern Nevada, ABC, the Associated Building and Contractors. That's pretty much the open shop group. They are one of them is used for legislative and legal kind of stuff. And advocacy for the industry. The other one is advocacy for craft and trade. That's how we use them. I sit on the boards of both.
I've heard trades before, that term, craft and trade. What's the craft?
So, on a lot of these boards I sit on, I'm surrounded by organized labor, and they refer to themselves as craft. So what I've learned in my time at Workforce Connections, and this is just a goofy guy thing, I don't care if you are working the counter at 7-Eleven, or if you are a prep cook at Circus, or if you are a journeyman carpenter on a 60-story tower. You have to embrace your craft and trade. rather you call it a trade or a craft, they're interchangeable to me.
Got it. Okay.
But sitting on that board, and they're delving out money to at-risk groups, both youth and adult groups. And some of it's vocational training for culinary. Some of it's not all just construction. And it changed my perspective that whatever you choose to do, it's a craft and trade. And I've said for a long, long time, what's missing from my industry is the nobility of craft and trade. My dad was a carpenter. I think in the podcast that you did with him, the little bit I listened to, he said he knew he was going to be a carpenter in 6th grade, right? I may have beat him. I may have been 4th or 5th grade because I had such a great example. I looked at my dad as a carpenter and as a superintendent as the most noble man I've ever seen. And I think we're missing that. And I look candidly across every industry, there is a notable gap of this nobility and this carry your chest high, stop staring at the top of your shoes when you're walking out to your car at the end of a long shift. You made it. I mean, you paid to do it. You're there by choice. There's so many other reasons and other ways to think about it. We just need to make better choices about it. And so when I talk about craft and trade, I have genuinely developed a real love for just anybody. Had lunch today, the lady that brought me my iced tea, that's her craft and trade. That's the way I look at it. I will treat her with respect. I will treat her with nobility. I will respect what she has chosen to do, even if she doesn't in that moment. And that's just kind of the way I speak about those kinds of things.
Also fascinating. So we talked about a few of the industry alphabet soups going into your civic part. So you talked about serving small disadvantaged businesses in the community through Martin Harris's Innovation Through Inclusion program, Western Minority Supplier Development Council, Urban Chamber of Commerce, Latin Chamber of Commerce, National Association of Minority Contractors Nevada, Women's Business Enterprise Council West. When do you actually work? I'm joking.
Well, I'm surrounded by absolutely amazing people. I am, so I get to choose when I work. In all fairness, while that's extracted from my bio, I'm not always the best person to serve on each one of those entities. So there's quite a bit of divide and conquer that happens in our organization. And we sit down, again, very deliberately and have a conversation about who the right person is. You know, Austin Kite, Nicole Lumpkin, they are really the driving force behind all of our minority stuff. Our minority folks like to have me come. I do 2 or 3 different workshops for them. We've always been a very diverse company. Greater than 19% of our construction revenue goes through what is a certified small or disadvantaged owned business. We look to raise that number. Again, we like to work with companies that their business plan isn't being a small business. We want to help them grow and we want to help them push up. And sometimes the love and advice we give is not what they would get in their, as you say, alphabet soup organizations, because, you know, they kind of gloss over the top of that. But when you get down to the nuts and bolts, it's really about business plans and performance. And sometimes that's hard to hear. And so, you know, we can step in and be that tough love from time to time. But our Innovation Through Inclusion program, to me, has just taken off and gone crazy. It really was the birthed from our convention center expansion program we did with Turner, where I was the executive in charge of our inclusion program. The SB1 bill required 15% inclusion. We promised the LBCVA board at the time that we would hit 20%, and we ended up at 27% diverse and small business inclusion on a $1 billion job.
Wow.
So it was a very, very successful, very well orchestrated, very well tracked program. And it's just one that we've continued on. So at least twice a month, we have one of these groups hosting a program in our training room at our office, where now it's not just me or Austin or Nicole. It's our business unit executives. It's all kinds of people pouring into them. We got estimators doing estimator training. My proposal writer is actually holding proposal writing classes. I mean, we pour in at every level of our organization.
That's remarkable. And then you oversee the philanthropic efforts for Martin Harris, which include an annual blood drive, commitments to Henry's Place, USO Nevada, Make-A-Wish, American Cancer Society, and others. I've heard of most. Tell me about Henry's Place and what is USO Nevada?
So when my dad was president of the company and CEO of the company, we had a personal and corporate charity. Right after the sale in 2014, that particular group mistreated their relationship with my father, and it led to a separation from that charity. And we had been solely focused on only one charity, and everybody in our company knew it, supported anything Frank wanted to do. Frank was on their board for over 20 years. Long, both personal and professional tie to them. We never built a single thing for them, but for free, we were their owner's rep and construction manager. I mean, all this stuff went on, and then some things went wrong. So what ended up happening is my dad basically got wounded and just stopped. And I said, all right, so we're going to go a different direction. So all of the organizations, in order to qualify to even be heard by Martin Harris, they have to touch our clients or touch our associates, not our clients. And we have to be able to have at least 95 cents of every dollar stay in Southern Nevada. So one prime example is the Golden Knights. We have a partnership with the Golden Knights. With that partnership comes a dash report. You won't ever see our name in T-Mobile. You'll see our name at City National, sheet 1, in the corner right behind the goal. Why? Because my associates will be in that place. They will be in that building. They will not go to 44 hockey games, and our dasher board doesn't do any good. I'm being a good steward of their money as well as I am my own. That's the way I feel about it. And so each of these different organizations have to touch our associates. Henry's Place was named after a Metropolitan Police Department sergeant who was killed in the line of duty. Yep, Henry Prendes. Yeah. Henry's Place, his wife at the time, Dawn. It was Henry's vision. Dawn, shortly after Henry had passed away, she wanted to carry the vision. She started doing camps anywhere she could, as best she could. Met a guy, they got married. The guy donated some property to Henry's Place. And my parents were the first, I'll say, large-scale donor to Henry's Place, and we built their lodge. So it is the Martin Family Lodge at Henry's Place, which is housed in Cedar City, Utah, but really it's for Southern Nevada at-risk youth. And they do amazing work, all faith-based, all Christian-based. And it's my family that donated, not the company, to Henry's Place. I was on their board. I love doomed boards, as I call them. I know when I'm leaving. I made him a commitment. I'll be here till my parents' donation is placed in compliance with their wishes, and then I'm out. You can have, because I'll be just taking a seat on a board, and I'm not moving the needle when I can go other places and do other things. So I've stepped down off of Henry's Place's board. I've left Workforce Connections board. My life's a little crazy, traveling and everything with the other business units that I help manage in our family of companies. And for the capital company. So I've stepped down off of a couple of those boards, but most of the time I replace myself. So it's somebody within Martin Harris will take my spot on that board.
They can't say no to you.
You'd be surprised. You'd be surprised.
So you talked a little bit about your faith. That's also right in your bio, which is another thing that's not, I should say it's unique. So it says that you and your wife, Trish, are devout Christians and hold the belief that to whom much is given, much is required.
Yes, sir.
Why do you put that in your bio?
So I believe that if I put it out there, one of two things will happen. Somebody will hold me accountable to it, which is what I welcome the most. And then somebody will ask me about it.
Which is what just happened.
That gives me a huge opportunity.
Nice.
Right. Again, my life goal, live a life I can't explain. My blessings are, I don't even know how to start writing them down. I don't believe I'm given those blessings to keep them. I do believe that I'm given those blessings to pass them along. And so if it's breakfast at 7 o'clock at Grits Cafe with Sean Del Newsom, or if it is breakfast at Lou's Diner at 6 o'clock in the morning with a small business that just needs a shoulder, or if it is watching my family grow up and get married and grandkids and all that other stuff, I'm supposed to do more with what I am given than what was done for me. And that's just how my wife and I are wired. We host a men's retreat for our church up at our cabin on the backside of Bryan Head. We'll bring 150 to 200 men up there every year. Done it for 16 years in a row. About 4 years ago, I started praying when I left Las Vegas. What do you want from me? What do you want? Big elaborate prayers, right? And which is never impressive. And I got nothing. And right at the top of the mountain, before you turn and go to our cabin, I pulled my prayer down to just really, really basics. And I said, what would you have me do? And I got my answer in one word, because God knows me. My brain's, you can't give me a lot of complex stuff. And he just said more. And I have rode on that for probably 10 years now, in that I know I'm to do more. And rather that is on a personal level, professional level, philanthropic level, industry level, leader level, I am not in that spot to judge. And I know that if something is put in front of me, I will do my very best at it. And if I get invited back, great. If I'm not asked to come back, that's fine too. I got other things. But I definitely believe that I'm supposed to do more than what I'm currently doing now.
And we're going to come back to that too.
Sure.
We talked about professional, industry leadership, civic leadership, Christian. Now I get to say officially, welcome to Takeaways, Guy Martin. That's the bio.
Thank you.
Hey, we did great.
Yeah.
All right. So I know you already told us a lot about who you are, but when someone asks you, right out of the gate, tell me who you are, tell me what you do. How do you answer that?
Yeah. I tell people I'm the most blessed man you'll ever see. I get to be president of Martin Harris Construction. I've been married for over 30 years. I have just an unbelievable life. And the more I get to talk about it, the more it actually veers towards my personal life, and just the blessings within my family. But, we are, as far as like company statistics and stuff, we run just north of 300 people inside of Nevada. We have a Northern Nevada office and a Southern Nevada office. We do roughly $650 million a year in revenue between the two offices. We build everything except for single family detached and on-strip hospitality. And we have specific reasons why that were carryovers from my dad. I'm a little bit more harsh about the on-strip hospitality justification than he was, but it was always just one of those things we didn't do. And so, we've got to be either the number one or number two largest school builder in the state. We love building schools. We love education projects. I don't think there's a better place for a company to leave its thumbprint on its community that's in its education programs. We've got, I think, 3 CTAs that we sponsor here in Southern Nevada that have kind of a construction and construction technology flair to them. And
What's the acronym CTA?
Career and Technical Academy.
Okay.
Those are like Southwest Career and Technical Academy. They're through the Clark County School District, but they have construction-focused stuff. But honestly, I am the orchestra conductor for one of the most impressive orchestras you could ever imagine. People are just amazing what they pull off at our company every day. And I walk in and my key fob works like everybody else's does. As long as the light turns green, I'm fine. I get to come in and we're good. But I just work really hard at making that a place that, look, people spend more time awake at Martin Harris than they do any place else. And I just want them to love it.
You and both your dad are quite exacting when you talk about numbers and dates and names, I'm observing. So you talked about some stats. Give me some more Martin Harris stats. How much concrete do you pour, or what are...
Wow. I don't run around with those stats in my head because honestly, they don't touch people. I can tell you that we have less than a single digit attrition for millennials. We are a place that millennials don't leave when they come to work for us. Our two largest demographics are baby boomers and millennials. So we have just a different way that we look at things. I think back to the pouring of concrete thing. We probably pour more concrete than any other self-performing general contractor that's not on the Las Vegas Strip. I think we poured right at 120 to 130,000 cubic yards a year. We pre-buy every year 100,000 yards of concrete from our vendor here in town so that we don't experience shortages that others might. And we've done that for years.
So how many buildings does that create? Did you say 100,000 cubic yards? Is that what you said?
Yeah. And, we are, well, I'll give you an example. You're familiar with Van Trust and the Vantage North buildings.
So Van Trust is an industrial developer. Yep. They build warehouse buildings.
Yep. Van Trust, Caprock, those guys that we work for. We build about 4.5 or 5 million square feet a year for them, and that's where the concrete goes. A lot of concrete,
a lot of building,
a lot of parking lots. We pour on slab on grade. We'll pour 80 to 90,000 square feet 3 times a week. And then we'll pour 30 or 40 tilt up panels on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And then we pour about 150 to 175,000 square feet of parking lot with our concrete paving machines. When the buildings are up and the roof's going on and we start doing the site work and stuff, we'll pour, 125 to 170,000, 150,000 square feet of hard stand.
So you mentioned Trish, you mentioned you're a grandfather.
I am.
So tell me about your wife, kids, and grandkids.
Yeah. So my wife, Trish, her and I met, she was 12, I was 15. We met at the Crystal Palace skating rink that's still there on Rancho. And her dad was a captain at the North Las Vegas Police Department, and she was too young. And I was really afraid of her dad. So we just kind of were friends for a while, dated a couple of times. She kept breaking up with me left and right. And finally I wore her down, and we got married. Like I said, I think it's 32 years ago, and she'll kill me for not knowing, but we'll get through that. I have 2 biological children and an adopted daughter. My adopted daughter is 27. My daughter's 26 and my son is 22. I have 5 grandkids, and my adopted daughter, when she came into our life, she was pregnant, 8.5 months pregnant, and made friends with my daughter, and she's been in our life ever since. And her son Oliver will turn 10 in September next month, and then I have Oliver's 10. I'll really get in trouble with this one. Hayden is 3, Addie is 2, and Elijah is just barely 1. So, and then when my adopted daughter got married, her husband has a daughter that's either 10 or 11 that's lives with her mom. So we just count her. It's a herd at our house. It's a herd. So we have that house.
Very cool.
Yep.
So I understand one of your crafts and trades is sporting clays.
Yeah.
Tell me, what is sporting clays?
So
how did you get into that?
So it started with me for about 10 or 12 years ago. You have done a little digging. That's awesome. It started 10 or 12 years ago. It's like golf, right? But golf with guns. Mm-hmm. There's 13 or 14 stations. There's a series of clay target throwers out there. It's not like trap or skeet where the whole thing happens right in front of you. It's a little more sporting event. And the only way it's like golf is I shoot like I have a job. not real good, but I have a lot of fun at it. I jokingly tell people it's the one habit I have that's in the Bible in a good way. I consider it making a joyful noise. You cannot shoot a shotgun and break a clay and not smile. So it is very rejuvenating for me. I have a lot of fun doing it.
That's how you rationalize it, justify it. It's a biblical.
If it works, it works. Nobody's shown up and told me to knock it off. So, but it is my thing. I'm very blessed. I get to travel and do it. Mostly west of the Rocky Mountains. I go to nationals every year in San Antonio. Not because I'm good enough to be at nationals, but because my check clears. You can go down there and, there's 2,600 shooters that shoot over a 14-day period of time in San Antonio. And it's like nothing you've ever seen. Every vendor, everything. I mean, it's like the World Series of whatever event you'd want to name. And I got an opportunity to go to Waste Management Open in Phoenix. That's very similar to like nationals for shotguns. I mean, every vendor's there. Every vendor row's huge. Everybody makes a big deal out of it, and that's kind of what nationals is like. But most of what I do is all on a local level here. I either shoot here out of Clark County, I'll shoot in St. George, I shoot in Heber City, Utah, I shoot in Salt Lake. I've been as far as Boise, New Mexico, Southern Arizona, both Tucson and Phoenix, and Southern California.
How'd you get into this?
Some friends of mine invited me out to a corporate shoot, and I've always shot guns. I mean, pistols, handguns. I'm a Second Amendment dude. I'm on it. I was a firearms instructor for a long time, probably 8 or 9 years for a training group out of Bakersfield that moved to Pahrump, and I worked for them for a little while. And then, so I've always been way into pistols and submachine guns and stuff. And then I got invited out to this corporate shoot, and as it turned out, I was reasonably good at it. And so somebody started asking me, hey, they have fun shoots twice a month and you can win money at it. I don't win money at it. And trust me, I don't even cover fuel cost for where I drive to go. So, but it gives me a reason to go out with my friends. I have a Labrador Retriever that goes with me. She hangs out in the back of my buggy and we go shoot and have fun. And it's just our thing. And it's what I do. And, but it is that one release. My family time is all at our cabin on the backside of Bryan Head. Our whole family, my kids just love it up there, and we are always up there when there's no snow. I hate being cold. I hate being wet. At the same time is out of the question. So it is few months out of the year that we go up there. But so I shoot mostly in the winter time, and then I'm at the cabin in the summertime.
So for someone that wants to get into sporting clays, what are some of the things you have to get right?
So first off, don't take yourself too serious. Go out there and have some fun.
People take themselves seriously in the sport?
Yeah.
I guess it's like golf too, right? You've got your folks that are way too, for me anyway, they're way too serious about it.
Look, yeah, you don't drink while you shoot sporting clays. You drink and tell stories afterwards. But so that is where sporting clays and golf split, right? No, but what I would say is there's the Clark County Shooting Complex. It's out on the far north end of town, at the absolute end of Decatur, as far up towards the base of the Sheep Mountain as you can get. They have programs out there where you can get into it. That's a great starter place to go. There's a fun shoot at Pro Gun Club out of Boulder City the first Saturday of every month, and then the fourth Saturday of every month there's a fun shoot up at Clark County. One of the greatest things about sporting clays is you can literally walk in there with a shotgun, 100 rounds of shells, safety glasses, and earplugs, and make a friend at the registration counter that will let you shoot with them. It's not like golf or tennis or anything else where if you already have a foursome, you can't. I mean, our sport is very, very open. It's the fastest growing shooting sport in the United States is sporting clays. So it's something that you can do at any level. I have shot with guys in their mid to late 80s. One of my closest friends out of southern Utah has shot over 250,000 registered clay targets in his shooting career. I mean, and then my son started shooting when he was 8 and is reasonably is probably better than me if he were to shoot more consistently.
Doesn't that drive you nuts?
Yeah, but that's a short trip. I park right next to nuts every day.
All right, so I ask everyone the same question. I'm curious your answer. What's the single most influential thing or event in your life that has defined or shaped you the most?
So, personally, it would have to be becoming a grandfather. Personally, that has reconfigured priorities is a bad word. But becoming a grandfather has reconfigured my values, which is way different than priorities. My values have changed. I tell people all the time, I am not afraid to die because I know where I'm going and I know what my faith says and I know what's promised to me. I just don't want to miss anything. So I'm living to watch my grandkids grow up. I'm living to watch my son and his career. I'm living to watch my daughters and their careers. And so that's really what has defined me personally. Professionally, it's really unique. You know who Steve Harvey is, right? The comedian.
Yeah.
So he has.
I love him, by the way.
And he and Marjorie are some of the most devout people I've ever followed or ever paid attention to. He's one of the very few people that I actually follow on social media. He's really awesome, and his inspirational way he talks is unbelievable. And it hit me at just the right time, as things usually do. He has and if you ever get a chance, you can look it up. It is the difference between your gift and your passion.
Mm-hmm.
I was raised by a very passionate man who, unbeknownst to him, worked within his gift his whole career. That's why it was easy for him. I was brought up saying, you have to be passionate. You have to be passionate. You have to have drive. You have to have initiative, all that stuff. And about, I don't know, maybe 6 months into being president of Martin Harris, I was interviewed and they asked me what's the one thing that scares me about being president of Martin Harris. And I said, the only thing I'm afraid of is not being accessible when somebody needs something from me for them to win. So at that point in time, I was, so passionate and so driven and everything. And then like 2 weeks later, I'm watching one of his motivational things. And this deal comes up about passion and gift. And he made a huge statement right up front. And he said, your passion is irrelevant. It means nothing if you're not working within your gift. Your gift is promised to you in the Bible. It is talked about in the Bible. The word passion isn't in the Bible. It's not relevant. Working within your gift, passion describes the motivation that you have for working within that gift. And then he goes on to define your gift as that thing that you do that you're the best in the world at with the least amount of effort. And as a leader, that changed me. I realized that I love building people. I love showing off the strengths, talents, and abilities of the people that God puts in my path. I don't care if you work for me or not. I will be your biggest hero. I will bang the gong. I will bang the cymbals. I will be your biggest hero and your biggest advocate. And the minute that I kind of pivoted and said, I'm here to build people. That is my gift. Everything that you were reading in the bio all happened in the last 8 years. Everything that you were talking about, from small businesses to boards to community stuff to philanthropic stuff, all those doors opened with that one pivot. And I think that what happens when we get lost in the drive or the desire to find your passion, you have to become completely enveloped in yourself to find your passion. I think when you work in your gift, it's way easier for you to be sold out to other people's success first. When I pray, I never pray for me, ever. I have no prayer in my prayer life that has me anywhere in it. I have faith that other people are praying for me. So I'm going to spend my prayer time with God on other people. So those little tiny pivots, those little tiny adjustments, they all started from that one interview. And it was right before an episode of the Steve Harvey show when he does this Hey Steve session and everything. and somebody said, hey, my son doesn't have a plan B. My son doesn't have this. And I mean, he just went off about the difference between your gift and your passion. Your passion is irrelevant. It's not in the Bible. Relevance is in the Bible. What's in the Bible? Work within your gift. And that's just kind of what I've been really focused on. And
so your gift is building
forward.
people.
Mm-hmm.
And once you leaned into that, really doors opened up for you, as you said, or maybe so quote unquote work became more effortless for you and you saw it like that. What are other examples of people's gifts that you've seen that anyone listening to this who maybe their gift isn't as obvious to them or it's not building people could say, oh, okay, I get it.
Right.
What are some examples?
I have a friend of mine owns a roofing company here in town. He's owned a roofing company as long as I've ever known him. He sold off a piece of it and went and bought a hunting ranch. The ranch is hugely successful, and the roofing company is hugely successful. His gift is building businesses. His gift is solving problems, being innovative, being creative. And I've watched him. He's not battling in the roofing business anymore. He's got both of these very squared away and very successful. I'll use my daughter as a prime example. So my daughter comes to me when she's like 17 years old and she's like, I don't want to go to college. Time out. And you heard me earlier talk about, college is the plan B in our family. So part of me in the back of my head's kind of smiling, right? And I'm like, all right, so what do you want to do? She goes, I want to cut hair. I want to be a cosmetologist. And I'm like, all right, well, I got zero ability to help you with that vocational desire. How about you give me a year? I think she was graduating her sophomore year, going into her junior year when we're talking. And I said, how about you give me a year? Because I'm your dad and we have all these blessings in our family and I want to be able to help you be successful. And so how about you go work for an architectural firm or you go work for an engineering firm, you go work for somebody. And so I placed her with a very close friend of mine at an architectural firm here in town. And so she was their receptionist for like 2 months. And then she moved into their architecture side for 3 or 4 months. And then she moved into their interior design side. She really started going crazy with that, having a great time with it and everything else. And so one night I come home and I walk through the front door. She's sitting at the kitchen table. Dad, we need to talk. I'm like, oh man, she's going to tell me she's going to go to school, be interior design or something, right? She's like, all right, I did it your way and I still want to cut hair. Okay. My daughter has 2 amazing children. She's got an amazing husband who his passion and love is building stuff. So he works in our company as an assistant superintendent and she cuts hair. And she does amazing at it. She has no student debt. Her craft and trade is very well honed. She has a huge repeat clientele. She has new clients every single week. I mean, she's killing it. She found her gift.
What more could you want?
I can't want more. Right. And she was mature enough for her and I to have a dialogue and for her to know what the requirements were. We talk about this in our family a lot. We have several rules in our family. Like you don't get to quit a job till you have your next one. You can never take a pay cut. Those are 2 of my big monster ones. Mm-hmm. And so it's funny. My kids from, as 26, 27 years old down to Travis, who's 22, they've never been without a job. And so, some of these things are just lessons. And, my adopted daughter, she's unbelievable. She was in the mortgage writing business. And then the recession comes. What happened, right? No mortgage writers needed. Mm-hmm. So she moves back to Las Vegas from California. She starts doing mortgage writing here while the market was still pretty strong here. And then all of a sudden interest rates go up. And I go to her one day and I said, baby, they'll not always need mortgage writers. Well, what do you think? And I said, I think you should take knowledge of your mortgage writing and compliance and all the tools there. And I think you should find another craft and trade that transfers into. So she now works for an insurance broker. She's got her license. She's doing great because people always need property insurance. They always need auto insurance. They always need health insurance. She's knocking it out of the park. She never took a pay cut. She never quit a job before she had one. So my kids are having an amazing time. So working within that gift is not always easy. And sometimes we get off track. Sometimes we get misguided. Sometimes we have to be pulled back. But I have an amazing time, and I can feel it. Like in my heart, I can feel when I'm on the wrong side of things, when I'm doing it for the wrong reasons. And I'm just working at getting better at coming back to center.
How do you come back to center?
So usually it involves, so I have 4 or 5 people in my life that are allowed to tell me I'm out of line. And probably only have maybe 10 to have the courage to tell me. I welcome it. I don't have a problem with it. After somebody views this, I'll probably get half a dozen phone calls telling me how far out of line I am on something. But my wife will tell me. When I'm working too much, my wife will make the statement, I'm not a single parent. That'll cut you to the core.
Mm.
That'll let you know when your priorities are goofed up. Making a cognitive point to celebrate other people is another way that I center myself. Because I have sticky notes on my desk, and they usually put them on there in the first couple weeks of the year, and then they stay there all the time. And a couple of them that are on there is, kindness at all cost. And the sticky notes that stay on my desk, once I've mastered what it says as like an affirmation, I'll peel it off and replace it, right? And there's a couple of them that have been on there for a really, really long time. I should get better at that. One of them is, kind at all cost. That's my big one. The other one is God places the greatest things in life just on the other side of terror. And that came from Will Smith. Will Smith was being interviewed about skydiving in Dubai and how fear robs from you. Most of the time, if you talk to somebody about what they're passionate about, and you ask them why they're passionate about it, it usually associates back to a fear of not being enough, a fear of not measuring up, a fear of not performing, a fear of failure. There's fear involved in your passion as a motivator. When you work within your gift, there's never any fear. You just keep going. It's easy. It's hard work, but it's still easy to find your motivation.
That was a heck of an answer. So let's go back, and I'm curious what it was like growing up in a company that bears your last name.
My dad made sure my brother and I knew that our name being on the building had absolutely nothing to do with us.
Seems kind of harsh.
So one thing I will tell you is I love my father. I believe my dad was and is the greatest father that he was equipped to be. You've heard his story and you know where he came from, son of an oil field roughneck, moving around all the different places, all of that stuff. How he ended up here and built the legacy that he built. And he always tells everybody that my mom raised my brother and I for the first 18 years, and then he took it from there. He also tells people he didn't understand he had 2 sons until he was at my graduation and realized he had missed it. At my graduation, I worked for him for 5 years, but you always worked for my dad, not with my dad. And I was blessed. My dad had some of the most amazing people who were hard as hell on me, but would never let me fail. We don't build those kinds of people in this world anymore, by the way. We are scared to death that somebody's going to come along and take our jobs, so we don't train up and stuff. I was constantly pushed to not let my dad down, and not by my dad. My dad never said words like that to me and my brother. He never said anything remotely like that. It was always the guys that we worked with, and they were incessantly hard on my brother and I, but would never let us fail because they viewed letting us fail as a failure to Frank. If they let us fail, they let him down.
But at the same time, they're not going to let you skate because of Frank.
Nope. What I realized, and I've done some stuff in my career, like I mentioned before, carpenter by trade, I did the most sketchy, most dangerous tasks that had to be done in the company because I realized the farther I climbed on a building, the farther off the ground I was, the further I was away from people and nobody messed with me. So if I'm stacking trusses on top of a 4-story office building, or if I'm landing glue-lam beams in a movie studio 60 feet off the ground, nobody's up that high to mess with me. If I'm on the ground, they're doing dumb stuff, right? So I've I have had an amazing career, but I realize there's less people to mess with you, the more sketchy and more risky the stuff you're willing to do. So I've done some cool stuff, but I never, like I said, my dad never really put pressure on or ever even acknowledged with my brother and I, hey, your name's on the building. And so that was never even a thing. When you drive by and I look at the building now and that's my dad's name. I'm just a dude. So it's different.
Do people mess with you on a construction site? Not you per se, but does that happen?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm actually curious. The construction industry, you said some terms earlier, apprentice, journeyman.
Yeah.
What do these mean?
So basically, when you're brand new to the craft and trade, you're an apprentice. You come in, the term is pre-apprentice. It's come in, I'm going to kick the crap out of you for a couple of months. And if you're still hanging around, I'll make you an apprentice. And then you follow along. And the original premise around an apprenticeship was I was an apprentice assigned to you. And if your craft and trade was property management, you would teach me how to do property management. You would teach me how to buy and sell real estate. I would be your apprentice. I'd be your number two. I'd be your understudy. Mm-hmm. It was done with full knowledge of bolstering the numbers of well-trained people within your craft and trade, but it was also done knowing that if I build you into an amazing foreman or general superintendent, then I can go be a project manager, right? Remember the theory before about the only time the company has an obligation to do anything with you is when you've replaced yourself. Now, if you find yourself working for a company that doesn't embrace that philosophy and doesn't let you build your replacement, that's a terminal relationship. You're stuck. That's a doomed relationship. Our company is founded on the principle of the fact that if you build your replacement, I will promote you. I will find something else to do to get you moving forward. So that's the journeyman is at the top of the performance standard for craft and trade. Apprentice is that developmental group coming up behind.
Thanks for that education.
Sure.
You talked a little bit about it earlier, but how do you establish yourself receiving the baton from your father when you became president?
So, I don't know do you know Linda Smith? She used to be the, I think CEO or executive director of Opportunity Village.
Nope.
Back in the day, 10 years ago or so. So Linda Smith one day, her and my dad are great friends. And, she came up to me one day and she goes, so, how you doing filling those boots, taking over from your dad? And I don't know where this little quippy comeback came from, but it is absolutely the way I feel. I've never one time ever tried to put my foot in my dad's boots. But every day that I walk in the office, I picture his boots standing next to the door. And I'll never forget where we came from. We have our 50th anniversary coming up in 2 years, and my dad is 77. Him and I are going to spend 2 days together in October and November, going to the first projects that our company ever built. And yes, it's part of, our 50th celebration and everything, but I'm missing that. I never had the connection with my dad to know Dr. Gubler's house, Dr. Adams' house. I don't know. He talks about them in the bio and in the history of our company. I don't have a clue where those are. So we're actually going to go, and don't tell him, but under the onus of it's for the 50th.
He might hear this.
I doubt it, but he probably will. Under the onus of our 50th, I want him to tell me about it. Because I think that while legacies change and they continue to mature and they continue to move forward, I've never stopped and measured myself against how I saw him. Mm-hmm. All I know is that he blazed a trail that I probably today am not qualified to take on, and I get to pick up from there and move forward. And if you look at like the executive leadership at Martin Harris, the very top level of our leadership council, they're all people that Frank put there. We don't have a single person in a vice president's role that wasn't a vice president when Frank stepped away 10 years ago. Or 8 years ago to me when he sold the company 10 years ago. That succession was solid and it was built from within. So I've never felt the pressure, and it's never made it to me if anybody else has ever contrasted his leadership and my leadership, his direction with the company, my direction with the company, I've never contrasted it that way. Him and I have had moments of passionate fellowship over him contrasting it, but it's that's just father-son stuff, I think.
Moments of passionate fellowship.
That's a Kevin Oder one. He was my pastor at my church for a long time. That's how he describes him and Ginger having conversations.
So it's hard when there's a founder and then there's a successor, and any change might be perceived as better. I'm doing it, different is different. Different doesn't necessarily mean better or worse, but different could just be a natural evolution for the times. Right. And it's enormously difficult to make any kind of change without the perception or, anyone maybe wanting to throw zingers to, I'm doing it better. I'm going to do it better.
Yeah.
Ever run into that?
No.
You haven't?
I don't. I mean, I don't want to let anybody down. Me personally. So that is a thing for me. That is a unit of measure. Do I let you down? Do I disappoint? In the 8 years that I've been in this role, my father's never told me that I've disappointed him. He's questioned my judgment, questioned decisions, calls me twiddled up really fast, a lot. But I haven't disappointed him. And he tells me that. My father and I communicate way better today than we ever have. And he's not afraid to tell me that I haven't disappointed him. He's not afraid to let me know that I'm doing all right, that it's working. And, it's been 10 years since the sale, and, knock on whatever version of wood your desk is here. That the team of people at Martin Harris are amazing, and they just continue to perform. So, and I'm just blessed to be part of it.
All right. So you mentioned the executive board. I prepared this question after reading your bio.
Yeah.
Let me see if I should read exactly how it is. So I'm curious about the executive board at Martin Harris, and I'll tell you why. Okay. So as humans, we are storytellers. We attach ourselves to narratives. We find purpose in them. That's nothing new. But it seems like you put your bio together, somebody helped you put it together because this is a story that you believe and want to put out there. And as you read through it, it was really important that you came up as a laborer and a super and an estimator, and then you were in operations, and then you were in business development, that you said it earlier, you've been in every single department of the company. In the bio, there's like a crescendo moment about when you were invited to the executive board. More so even, as maybe my own interpretation, it was almost more so of a crescendo moment for the executive board than it was when you became president.
I sit on the executive board of the capital company that owns our company, and that is the executive board that references to. I get absolutely excited every day that I get to wake up and understand that I have access. So Martin Harris has 353 people this week. I find out how many people, I know exactly how many people we have, how many projects we have going. If anybody got hurt, I find out, I reach out, I talk to their spouse, I talk to their significant other. My safety guy is taking care of the associate. I'm taking care of their family. I'm making sure they're taken care of. So for me, moving on to the executive board of our capital company, I now get to take that uncommon approach to people building, and I get to take it to other business units. Our company has, I think, 19 offices in 12 different states, and I get to travel. I have a couple business units within the capital company that I manage on top of Martin Harris Construction. I also have a role, like I said, on their executive board as the chief operating officer for the capital company. And so I now get to take the philosophy that we have and take it to other business units. Our Idaho Falls business unit was in our office yesterday afternoon and all day today, figuring out how we do marketing and business development. Our Boise, Idaho office has been down. Our Midwest office, Southwest has been over, and they come to our offices as just sharing stuff. And so for me, that move to the executive board of the capital company was my opportunity to really level up and let all the other people at Martin Harris have access through that. So like today, the Idaho Falls guys that are in our office, I'm not there. I mean, I've got 3 people from my marketing and from my procurement department that are sitting with them all day long, answering any question they want, full transparency. There's nothing but we in our company. I have worked really hard, starting with myself, to remove I and me from my vocabulary. It's all we and us. And it has just continued. It's another one of those moves that when you sit back and you go, why didn't I do this sooner? Why did I have such a narrow mind? Why was I? Well, it's because I'm a product of my environment. And when I'm exposed to other things, I make a choice. I either hide or grow, right? And I choose to grow.
You either hide or grow, is that what you said?
Yeah. Well, you mean you either hide from, my dad calls it what is it? You've probably heard him say, I usually say a glorious blinding flash of the obvious. And my dad has another term for it that he uses all the time. But typically, if you're tied up in the I and the me, you fight the lesson that's easy to take. So if somebody comes up to you and goes, if you just, like for an example, this is a really absurd example, if you parked farther away and allowed the associates of your company to see that you're just the same as they are, you can walk through your parking lot to come to the front door just like they do, they would see you on an even playing field. Okay. No. Right. I'm still parking up here. Mm-hmm. And I remember a time where my dad, this isn't like an obscure example, this is my dad. One of the couple of times that we were fundamentally bankrupt going through the whole process, my dad started parking out in the farthest corner of the parking lot, walking through the parking lot. What it actually told everybody is that, holy crap, we're in trouble. Frank's parking with us. And it had the counter effect, right?
That's fascinating.
For me,
he's doing it as a way to like humble himself, and yet it actually,
wrong message to everybody else.
Right, got it.
And so I'm careful. I love being part of the executive board for the capital company. The blessings I get at Martin Harris, I get to extend to other places now. And so yeah, it's odd. It's actually, I would call it an off-ramp on the superhighway of my career. It's not the crescendo. I have a lot more to do. I have a very deliberate business plan of my own, personally, what I want to accomplish before I decide that I'm going to go do something different.
That's to live a life you can't explain.
It's a part of it. Yeah. That's my overall goal, but I will finish out my career very deliberately building leaders, and not managers, but leaders. And I've got a pathway in front of me that allows me to.
What is the difference between a leader and a manager?
I before we. If you are I, you're a manager. If you are we, you can become a leader. And it is as simple as that. I've never met somebody in my career or in my tenure that's ever been able to truly lead without having to be selfless first. You can't be a selfish person and be a leader. It doesn't work. It's like the difference. I split hairs with things all the time, and the difference between being an activist and an advocate is much the same way. An activist is there for the greater good and the cause. An activist is there for themselves.
Advocate is there for the group. Okay.
So if I'm an advocate for small business, I'm there for the greater good. And I may have misstated that, but if I'm an advocate, I'm there for the greater good.
And then
if I'm an activist, I'm there for what I can get out of what I change.
Yeah.
And so, other things we do, we don't stroke checks to nonprofits, but we will deeply support a for-purpose organization. So there's a difference between those. Typically, the difference is rather or not you change your mission based on your funding source. If you pivot and chuck and jive and everything because there's an RFP over here, there's a grant over there and everything, that's typically a nonprofit. If you can stay on point, on task, regardless of what you have to do for those funding sources, that's a for purpose.
So let's go to this Christian thing that's in your bio.
Sure.
You lead with that, which is, I would say, unique for these times, these days,
Yes,
kind of the society. There's this. You also have inclusion as part of a big thing of what you do, and I feel like we're this is my observation.
Yep.
I'm curious your reaction. I feel like we're at a time where inclusion, you putting your faith out there like that, saying, "I'm proud Christian." We pray before meals. You mentioned it at Martin Harris.
Yep.
So putting it out there like that, you're potentially excluding someone else. And I feel like this is kind of where in this term inclusion has come to. There's something good to split hairs about. What are your thoughts on that?
So in my opinion, folks that would believe that my faith would somehow exclude them from something within our organization are wearing kind of this victim veil. They're looking for something to blame for something they feel. The one thing I know in my faith is my job here on earth is not to judge. I don't get to. Judgment is handled somewhere else by someone else at another time, whatever the case may be. Where I think most people that get themselves in trouble around the term inclusion or diversity are people that take it to almost an activist level. The people that get so out over the tips of their skis that they have lost diplomacy, they've lost decorum, they have lost the ability to coexist. And I don't judge. My faith has opinions. People within my faith issue opinions. For me, and it's not sticking my head in the sand or anything else. It's just honest. I don't want to judge. I'll pray for you. Okay. If you have this thing going on in your life and you're jammed up because I prayed before a meal at our Christmas party, and by the way, we still call it Christmas party. Organizations I donate to around the holiday season, I make them use the word Christmas when they use our name on anything. It's branded on it. There is nothing wrong with the kindness that is woven into the Judeo-Christian belief and philosophy. If you took out the fact that they're in the Bible, the 10 Commandments would not be a bad way to live for anyone. So, but I get hung up on the fact that I'm not qualified, nor is it my job to judge. So if you come at me and you're angry with the decision that I made in front of, 700 people at a Christmas party to have an honor guard march in and present colors, to have a 12-year-old girl stand up there and sing the national anthem, to ask everybody to stand while we say the prayer before we eat. If you want to come at me, I'm just going to pray for you. Because there's some stuff going on in your life that has nothing in the world to do with me. Because none of that is incisive. None of that is divisive. None of that is set up or has even the remote desire to hurt or destroy or take anything away from you. Now, you've got some things that may be going on in your world, some exposures and life experiences that trigger you in those environments. And you're more than welcome to sit out. You don't have to be there. You're there by choice. But, after 46 years, everybody knows we pray at our Christmas party. Everybody knows I pray. We have a Founders Day picnic out at my mom and dad's place. I get to throw a party for 500 people at my parents' house every year. That's pretty awesome, right? We pray at the Founders Day celebration. It's just us. And in my career, my entire career, nobody's ever walked up to me and told me I offended them. Not once. Nobody's ever, but I get droves of people acknowledging the courage that it takes to pray in these times. The social climate that you're speaking of, this inclusionary time, no greater time should we all pray than right now for what our country's becoming. And I'm not saying that from the standpoint of changing beliefs, changing mindsets. I'm not that guy. I'm not that cool. I'm saying it just from the place of understanding, grace and mercy. I mean, geez, Pete, if we just started out there, if we do three things, stop judging and hand out grace and mercy fast, quick to forgive. If we could just embrace a couple of those things, we'd get way, way better at being human beings. I don't get jammed up in worrying about it. Yeah, it's just, it is part of our culture. It is part of what we do. Every new hire that comes in that's from a assistant superintendent level up, I do a core value orientation. We talk about the faith-based nature of our company within the first 30 days, you will hear me tell you the faith-based approach we have to our company. And it's the way we treat people is what I tie back to the faith. It's not everybody has a Bible on the corner of their desk. Everybody open up and read a scripture. Everybody has to come to staff meeting with a scripture, biblical thing. None of that. Where does the basis of how we treat people come from? Comes from being a Christian. Take the 10 Commandments out of the Bible, and it's a great way to live. And that's just, so we've really not gotten jammed up with that.
You are very blessed. You're quite accomplished. Do you ever experience imposter syndrome?
What is that?
Where you feel like, I don't deserve this. I'm not good enough.
Oh, yeah. All the time.
How does it show up?
It's an emotion. It actually happened to me on Monday. I was sitting at the airport getting ready to fly to Idaho for a board meeting. And I have no idea why, but I'm sitting there and all of a sudden an absolute paralyzing fear of not being qualified to be in that room poured over me. It was everything I could do to just not get up and walk out of McCarran and go home. Because for some reason I was being attacked in that moment. And again, back to the faith thing. My God has like just three things in his toolbox, right? It's grace, mercy, and love. That's what my God gives me. The devil has everything. Every snap-on roll-away toolbox you've ever seen in your life filled with every tool out there. And self-doubt is the number one weapon he uses on me. And that's how it shows up. And it's paralyzing. Absolutely paralyzing. So I pray. And I just sat there in the airport and I just put my headphones in, turned on music and prayed. And by the time I made it to the airplane and by the time I was time to board, it had kind of subdued. What I will tell you is, for me, the faster I recognize I'm not qualified to handle the problem that's facing me or that I feel in my heart, the easier it is for me to give that up and let somebody else handle that. And, I have a very, very simple prayer life. What am I to do? What am I to learn? Those are like my prayers. I say them before every meeting. I say them before walking in here, standing in the hallway. It's not like a ceremony or anything. But in my mind, if I ask God, what am I to do? What am I to learn? I'm no longer in the room. I get to take it in. And I get to be a student at that time, not a teacher.
I don't want to harp on the inclusion thing, but you talked about like not judging, being curious. So when you say prayer, here's the image that I have.
Sure.
You bow your head, you put your hands together, you say some preamble like, Lord in heaven, something like that, and you get into it. What you just described is more like almost a meditation or an affirmation. Call it what you will. It's a good practice.
Oh, sure.
And I could have, let's just say I'm one of these people that gets triggered by something that isn't comfortable for me, or the term microaggression or whatever. I'd have missed out on, being curious, learning something, and applying it for me. Let's wrap with some rapid fire takeaways. You told me that there's Guyisms, things you say around the office. What are some Guyisms?
Oh boy, I'll just give you one or two. So backlog is the biscuit that feeds our animal. When we run low on backlog, our animal gets hungry and it bites stuff it shouldn't. That's one of them.
So in construction terms, backlog is your pipeline.
Our pipeline.
Your work.
Yep. What I know is that when we get low on backlog, we make really horrible decisions. Another Guyism is it's really hard to hit your off ramp if you drive looking in your rearview mirror. That's one that to try to get our business unit executives and our teams focused forward. That's another one I love, and this isn't a Guyism, but I love the fact that the aspect ratio of your rearview mirror to windshield is accurate for life.
Mm-hmm.
I think you should celebrate where you came from, but you should focus on where you're going, and so we use stuff like that. There's a couple of them. If you know what the head of the snake looks like when you reach down and grab his tail, he should never bite you twice. Okay. We've all been bit. We've all grabbed something, taken on an initiative, something we shouldn't have done. You should know what the head of the snake looks like. You should never get bit twice. There's 2 full calendars of them out there. My business development and marketing department put together a calendar, and I think we're up to about 70 of these guys.
I got to get one of these calendars.
I'll get you one.
So what are some takeaways to someone thinking about joining your industry?
Now's the time. There is no greater time. There is no greater demand. In my career, there has never been a better time to enter the construction industry than right now. Professionally or at craft and trade, it doesn't matter. If you want to go to CSN and get a construction management degree, or you want to go to CSN and be an air conditioning tech, there is never a better time. The barrier to that whole thing is still the fact that we've spent 2 full generations convincing people that craft and trade has lost its nobility, and you have to be higher education, you have to be college, you have to be all this stuff. And that's a lie. And it was a lie that was propagated by funding sources that funded the lie. And I'm here to tell you right now that when a carpenter reaches their entire earning potential of north of $100,000 a year, 4 years out of high school, and has 0 student debt, and a doctor doesn't hit the same earning potential until 12 years into his personal practice, after all the student debt and everything else, now's the time. Jump in. We need more craft and trade.
If you were to write a book, what would the title be?
Live a Life I Can't Explain.
Should have seen that one coming.
Yep.
What's your biggest number one takeaway for over 40 years in the construction business?
So there's 2. Number 1 is always be kind. Don't ever become the customer you're dealing with. And never work for a client that makes you change who you are as a company to be able to work for them. We've made those mistakes. That is hands down every client we've ever gotten crossed up with, separated, sued, all the business of construction stuff that happens is a client we should have never worked for. And we could have found it out. So I have a saying, one of the Guyisms I use around the office all the time is a client is only half as kind during construction as they are during pre-con. So if you can't stand to be around them during pre-construction, there is no freaking way we should ask one of our teams to spend 2 years saddled to that guy or his team. And so we measure things very, very early, but not lurching after bad work is really, really important.
What's your favorite takeaway to share as a leader?
Never go anywhere alone. always, 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 always have an apprentice. Always have somebody with you. That is one of the number one credos in our company when it comes to once you've reached like a senior level of leadership, you're running a business unit, you're running a department, any of that stuff. We have a huge rule. You're not allowed to go anywhere alone. Institutionalize everything that happens in your day. No individualizing anything. And don't go anywhere alone.
You a Star Wars fan?
No.
This is the Jedi principle.
Is it?
Yeah, with Padawans and the Sith even. That'll be
it's also a bit biblical. So
yeah, I'm sure that's where they got the Star Wars theme from.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Best
takeaway on philanthropy.
For purpose, not and nonprofit. The separation is very, 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 very important.
I think you have to be around a lot of charities to learn that distinction firsthand.
So the easiest way to find out who you're dealing with is ask them to bring you their business plan from 4 years ago, 5 years ago, and bring you their current one. Very easy to see.
That's a good takeaway. What's an awesome project you're building right now that you're just giddy about?
That's a great question. We build a lot of apartments. And if somebody would have told me 10 years ago that apartments would be 35, 40, 50% of our revenue annually, I would have laughed them right out of my office. There's just no way, right? But when you walk into an apartment complex, and we don't build like affordable housing ones, we build the luxury ones. We work for guys like Kalita and things like that. And when you walk in and you see the fact that you are building a community, that children grow up there, and it's weird, right? Because Las Vegas is changing so much. There are people moving in here whose children will never live in a single family detached house. They just won't. They'll go from an apartment to a condo, or an apartment to another apartment to another apartment to another apartment. They'll never live in a single family detached house. And then you realize after you watch a few of them move in and you see the way these campuses and these communities function, you're really building a community. And it is someplace that they come to stay. So I love the fact that we build a lot of apartments, but I will tell you that probably the coolest thing we get to do right now is schools. If you have a healthy school construction program in your community, and this isn't a quality education conversation or debate, I don't even have time for that crap. What I will tell you is that if you're building schools, you're building communities. And I think the statistic is 1 out of every 11 students in the Clark County School District go to a school that Martin Harris has either built or remodeled. I'm pretty proud of that. That's really cool. And it's been that way for over 40 years.
That's amazing. I have a final ending question before I ask, is there anything else you'd like to share?
No, I don't think so. I really appreciate the opportunity. I do. I just, like I said, I'm humbled to be here, so I really appreciate it.
Well, it's fun for me. All right. What are you most hopeful about for our little old community here in Southern Nevada?
I think we're right on the cusp of something that every elected official in Southern Nevada has always talked about, but nobody's ever figured out. And that is a level of economic diversity through sports and entertainment that nobody would have ever thought we would accomplish. I think that's going to become what people on outside of our community think we don't have, right? Everybody thinks we're a 7-mile strip of asphalt in an airport. Nobody understands we actually have a community, and then we have the ability to support teams or be enthused by multiple sports, from the Aces, like we were talking about before, to the Golden Knights, to maybe the A's, and we'll see, in the Raiders. And I think that that will draw our community really, really close together. Because when the new wears off, right? And I think we're starting to see a little bit with the Golden Knights right now. our community still loves our hockey team. Who would have ever thought that when they struggle, we still like them? Because we've never done that, right? I mean, we've always been the fair-weathered guys and the fair-weathered community. We still like them. That's pretty cool. And I think that will continue to build a sense of community here that, in my time here is missing. So I'm excited to see what continues to grow and what continues to define our city. I don't think in 5 years we're going to be defined as casinos and conventions. We'll have a way, way more diverse definition of what Las Vegas is.
That's something great to be hopeful about.
Yep.
Guy, thanks so much for doing this.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir.
Thank you for listening. I would love to hear from you about your takeaways from this episode. Make sure to leave us a comment or leave us a review. Also, please subscribe to our YouTube channel so you can hear future episodes as they come out. My name is Chaim Mizrahi. Tune in next time.